almost killed my child, and because I knew the signs and symptoms, I was able to get him the help that he needed. I want you to imagine that your small child wakes up with a fever and nausea and vomiting and a rash, and you take them to the doctor and you're told it's something simple like hand, foot, and mouth disease. You take them home, you give them treatment, and instead of getting better, they get worse. And that is what happened to me when my son was 18 months old. And I was able to get him the help that he needed because I knew what to look for. And what I'm describing to you is something called Kawasaki disease. It goes by a couple of other names. It goes by Kawasaki syndrome, KD, and the medical term is mucocutaneous lymph node syndrome. Hopkins medicine says that Kawasaki disease is a rare heart condition that causes inflammation of the blood vessels, and it develops suddenly. It's very rare, but it's extremely serious, especially if it goes undiagnosed or misdiagnosed. And the risks all affect the heart, so blood clots and aneurysm. Medline Plus defines an aneurysm as the bulging and thinning of the walls of an artery. And when an aneurysm is present, it greatly increases the chances of a heart attack and internal bleeding. So who exactly does this affect? This affects children, typically in the age of 5. Boys are more affected by girls, and about 4,000 children are diagnosed with it in the U.S. every year. The American Academy of Pediatrics says that Kawasaki disease is the leading cause of acquired heart disease in kids. So what exactly are the symptoms? The most common and persistent symptom is going to be a fever. The National Library of Medicine says that the diagnosis requires the presence of a persistent unexplained fever for at least 5 days. The fevers are high and unresponsive to antibiotics. When my son was sick, he had a fever of 104 for 7 days. It did not respond to fever reliever, and it did not respond to antibiotics. And as you can see here, the other symptoms include red, irritated eyes, red, cracked lips. His lips were so cracked that they were literally bleeding. They were so chapped. He had a red rash all over his body, fever, like we said, swollen lymph nodes in the neck, and then redness and swelling in the hands and feet. And the skin on his hands and feet also peeled off with that. And then over here it says something called strawberry tongue. Now, strawberry tongue is another very distinguishing factor of Kawasaki disease, and the Cleveland Clinic defines it as a tongue that's red with large bumps that look like the skin of a strawberry. Misdiagnosis is one of the greatest threats to children with Kawasaki disease. The longer it goes on, the more serious it becomes. My son was 7 days of the onset of symptoms before he was properly diagnosed. The National Library of Medicine says the diagnosis of Kawasaki disease continues to remain a clinical dilemma, and that's because there is no precise test for Kawasaki disease. It's mainly just eliminating what else it could be. And it can present as a couple of other things: measles, toxic shock syndrome, Stevens-Johnson syndrome, rheumatoid arthritis, and scarlet fever are the other ones that it can present as. Society, a United Kingdom Kawasaki Disease Foundation, says that Kawasaki disease presents with several symptoms common to a variety of childhood diseases and infections. Therefore, it is often misdiagnosed. And prompt diagnosis matters. Children diagnosed within the first 5 days of onset of symptoms have a much greater chance of recovery than children after those 5 days. Society goes on to say that children affected by Kawasaki disease have much improved chances of a good recovery with timely diagnosis and correct treatment. As a parent, I had to fight for my son to be properly diagnosed. It took several visits to hospitals, urgent cares, doctor's visits. They gave a lot of different answers to what it could be, and I kept pursuing it because I felt like it wasn't right. And it turned out that it was something much more serious, and he was able to get the treatment that he needed because of it. And the treatment looks like use of steroids, low-dose aspirin, something called gamma globulin. The Mayo Clinic defines it as a treatment for Kawasaki disease. Can include a protein called gamma globulin given through an IV. This treatment lowers the inflammation in the blood vessel. He also had to be monitored by a specialist through the use of an echocardiogram to monitor his heart. Because I knew what to look for, I was able to get him the help he needed, and he is now 6 years old and has no symptoms. They said it's like it never happened, and it's because I have fought for him to be diagnosed properly. And I've empowered you today as a parent to know what to look for if this was ever something that happens to you. Thank you.